This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Hello and welcome back to Coffee with Kenobi. This is your weekly spoiler-free place for Star Wars community and conversation. I'm your host, Dan Zehr, thrilled to be talking Star Wars with each and every one of you, and I brought a couple of friends along to talk about Star Wars The Bad Batch. This is the 5th episode in Season 2. This episode is entitled Entombed, and I brought two very familiar co-hosts to Coffee with Kenobi to join in on the fun. First, my son, the one and only Mason Zehr. Mason, welcome back to Coffee with Kenobi.
Thank you.
Good to see you, buddy. Also joining is another little buddy that we like to talk with. It's been a while, ironically enough, since you've been on actual Coffee with Kenobi proper. Certainly we work together. We're on other podcasts together, but Coffee with Kenobi, it's been a while. So let's welcome back Mr. Tom Gross.
Hello, everybody. It's great. It is great to be back. And you're right. It has way too long.
Awesome. Well, it is good to see you. So let's do what we always do. Let's give one word to describe the episode, and then overall reactions. As always, we will save our letter grade for the end of the show, and hopefully our comments will give you, as a listener and a person who's joining us at the coffee table today, an idea of why we felt the way we did about the episode. So who would like to start?
Oh, I guess I'll go.
Okay.
So one word, a grade, and then a description.
No,
of
the
why
grade's at the end of the episode.
Got it. So one word,
and then explain your overall reactions to the episode.
Perfect. Got it. I think my one word that really, the one thing that stands out so much to me in this episode is, let's go with the word puzzles.
Oh,
puzzles. And there, so my initial reactions to this episode, the other word I could have used is just fun, but I didn't want to be generic like that. So I thought this episode was super, super fun. One thing that Disney Plus has been bringing to the table that I've really, really enjoyed with all of the Star Wars Disney Plus series shows is the way they play with different genres of storytelling. And this one was no different. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed the whole thing. There's only one thing that sort of rubbed me a little wrong, but I just had to get used to it. But we'll talk about that later. But I really thought this one was a lot of fun. And like I said, the different genre feel to it was what I really enjoyed.
all right. Mason, what about you?
I had the word inspiring because when I was thinking, what should my word be? The first word in my mind popped inspiring, because how Phee is like telling Omega, like, and helping her with the treasure hunting.
Uh-huh.
And she's inspiring her.
Oh,
And it
you're
kind
right.
of makes people feel like that, and it gives you that Indiana Jones kind of feel.
Oh, look at you. You've definitely done your homework, buddy. I always say I'm impressed. Well, I'm biased, and I'm not ashamed of that. But that's
I had that
that's
in my
very true.
notes.
It's in your notes? Oh, even that's so cool. I love it. Yeah.
I love it. Yes. In the notes.
In the notes. My word for this one is genre head scratching. It's a hyphenated word. Look it up. It's in the dictionary, the dictionary of Zehr. Genre head scratching, because we've got a couple of different things going on here. They both affected or landed in different ways for me. But when it comes to clever, this episode has clever in spades.
So your word's clever.
No, I'd say genre head scratching, but clever was
That's 3 words.
Yeah, well, it's hyphenated, Mason.
Those
You sound
hyphens
like
do
Corey
wonders.
now. Yes. Corey loves ties. He loves the trickery. Let's talk about the episode overall. We've given our one word to describe it. In essence, we meet Phee Genoa again. Phee is her first name. Genoa is her second name. Phee Genoa. She is voiced by Wanda Sykes. Tom, what are your thoughts? We've seen 2 episodes with Phee Genoa. What are your thoughts on her?
Okay, so let's get right to it, because that's the thing that didn't really work for me right away, and took a little while to it took me a little while to come around to it, or the tone of it changed. First of all, my wife was kind of coming and going from the room, and she goes, that voice. I recognized the voice, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together that it was. Say the name again for me.
Her name is Phee Genoa. Yes.
No, I mean the actress.
Oh, Wanda Sykes.
Yes, Wanda Sykes. Okay. So this is what didn't work for me right away. Is I just didn't quite see what Omega would see in Phee Genoa right from the start. It kind of seemed a little, I don't know, just it didn't seem like a match for me. And it took a little while. I just felt like Hunter wasn't really feeling it. Echo wasn't really feeling it. Wrecker was just being a big brother, and Tech was just being Tech. So I just felt like nobody really liked the way this was going. And then all of a sudden, Omega is like, let's do this. Let's go. And it just didn't seem to make a lot of sense to me right away. But as the episode continued with Phee Genoa, I started seeing how their characters kind of were coming closer together in interest. So that was my only rub of the entire episode. So yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. I think her character is cool. A pirate. What Star Wars story isn't what Star Wars story doesn't have a pirate somewhere in it? And so I'm perfectly fine with her as a character. I liked her opening where she's telling and spinning those stories to those 2 clowns that are always in that tavern restaurant place. And so it wasn't so much I don't like the character. I just didn't see the connection between her and Omega right away.
Okay. So is she someone you want to see more of, or are you good with what you have so far, or is it too early to say?
Oh, it might be a little early to say, but it certainly, if they do any more adventures that are seemingly have this feel to it, where it's, I mean, geez, maybe if they'd have taken her with them to the Dooku's hideout with the treasure there, maybe things would have turned out a little differently for them. But no, I don't mind seeing her again. I just want to make sure it makes sense.
What if she met Teo? That might be interesting. I can say this, and I want to hear what Mason says first. But no, I'll save it. Mason, what are your overall thoughts on Phee Genoa?
I want to hear what you want to say.
Okay.
If
if someone were to ask me, do you like Phee Genoa? I would say I'm not quite sure that I do. I will say this: I love Wanda Sykes. I think maybe what you were talking about before, Tom, at least my interpretation, is that Wanda Sykes has such a unique, distinct voice that it almost takes you out of the story. Because it's hard not to think of Wanda Sykes when you hear Wanda Sykes talk.
Sure.
Because it's not like it doesn't sound like she's doing a character. It sounds like she's just being Wanda. No, I love Wanda Sykes because she's funny. And also because she was in the first 5 or 6 seasons of Curb Your Enthusiasm. So naturally, if you're a listener of CWK Prover, you know how much I love that. So this is how Phee Genoa describes her. She says, treasure hunter or pirate or liberator of ancient wonders. Now, I like liberator of ancient wonders quite a bit. I think that's fun. But at this point, while I definitely do not want to see any more Teo, if we see more Phee, I'm going to put it in the column of a wait and see attitude. And the main reason is because, like you said, Mason, she's an inspiration to Omega, but she's also might be a little bit dangerous. Yes, she's encouraging her, inspiring her. But if this was like your teacher, Mason, or a teacher of one of the other boys, I would be really reluctant unless they were of a certain age, because I would be afraid, and Hunter says this many times, that she's going to get somebody killed. And so that it makes me nervous, I guess, as a parent or a mentor. What do you think, Mace?
I'm gonna say, like when Hunter says, "You're just making things up as you go." That's kind of her.
That's her. So do you want to see more of Phee or no?
I think too early to tell.
Okay. But do you agree that she's a good influence, but she's also kind of a bad, tricky influence as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Tom. Any more on that?
Yeah, I was gonna say that let me make a comparison to another famous pirate that I didn't care for at the beginning, but now I really enjoy and is kind of iconic. Is Hondo Ohnaka.
I knew you were going to say Hondo. I love Hondo.
I did not like Hondo at the very start. He was a little too slimy, a little too wordy, and but of course, as the seasons of Clone Wars goes on and into Rebels and so forth, we really come to really have a connection with him. So I don't know. We might get that if she continues to be out there. The other thing that kind of rubbed me wrong was her the way she called them names, like, all right, brown eyes, all right, kind of like
like Sid.
Why can't I think of her name now? Yes,
Sid.
just like Sid. So
we've had a lot of jokes about the whole brown eyes thing, and because it's pretty funny, because doesn't Tech say something, Mason, like, actually everyone has brown eyes, it's a pigmentation thing, or what does he say, something like that?
He does, yeah.
Yeah.
Technically.
So let's talk about Omega now, because I feel like she is, even though she's been like kind of the center of almost all these episodes to a degree, I feel like we're not diving quite as deeply into her. We're just kind of looking at her from the outside to a degree. And I think there's this wonderful metaphor at the beginning, like the very beginning of the episode. She holds up this piece of glass and she stares through it. And it reminds you of the second episode where that older gentleman, I can't think of his name now, he gives her a toy. So when she looks at it through that glass, and he says, is this treasure? And he says, no, it's a toy. And she's intrigued by it. She doesn't say a lot. So the fact that she sees that down there and she picks it up and she looks through it like it's a toy almost, even though she knows it's not a toy, but she's looking for that effect, for that feeling. It's a good reminder. And I think we see this throughout the entire episode. And this is probably why Phee has the impact on her that she does, because we're a little spoiled with Omega being so mature and savvy and heroic and intelligent. But these things, these subtle reminders, keep reminding us that she's actually still a kid. She's still a child, even though she's older and she's a clone. Just that little quick thing of her looking through the glass, it helps make sense why she would just follow Phee blindly through all this stuff, because we have to remember that she's still a kid. And to me, this makes her a much richer, more compelling, more three-dimensional character.
Absolutely. I caught that too with the glass and the connection to the toy in a previous episode. And so one thing that really struck me on this is how impressionable Omega is. She's been hanging out with brothers. She's been hanging out with, Hunter as her father figure for so long that I kind of felt I felt some of Hunter's emotions in this. Like when they when they ask Hunter, can we do this? Can we do this? And he looks at Echo and they kind of look back at her and it's like, okay, it's the father letting the child have a little independence, going to let someone else lead her, but he's not going to be too far away, which is also really poignant when there's that cave in and Tech, Wrecker, and
Echo.
they're on the one side. Yeah.
They split up.
And
It's Echo, Tech,
and
Wrecker,
Omega, Hunter, and
separated.
Phee.
That's right.
Yeah. And so there we have father figure. We have the sort of impromptu mentor that Omega is so excited to follow. And so, yeah, Dan, you're absolutely right. It's a great look at where Omega is kind of pulling between two worlds, the world of independence and trying to be a team of adults and still having that childlike draw. Another piece to that is really even at the very ending of the episode where she sits down with Phee and Phee starts spinning another tale. And it's like, the child is just enjoying the stories that are being told, and Hunter just shakes his head and walks away because they're just stories. And that's what kids love.
That's right. I love that it's a story that has stories in it.
Yeah.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Mason, what have you noticed about Omega in this episode?
It's when she finds the coordinate markings, you can tell it kind of reminds her of what you guys were talking about when she looks at the thing and she asks if it's treasure. Really a toy.
Do you think that Omega, and you and I talked about this a lot when we watched the first episode for the first time and the second one, do you feel like do you think she's being greedy? And sometimes I worry that she's too worried about treasure, or what do you think?
What I think is she wants to have a good impression on the rest of the Bad Batch. And if she doesn't, she feels hard on herself.
True. And I think she wants to make a good impression on Phee too. I mean, Fee's like she's not a mother figure, but she's a character that is like, she's a female and she's very influential. And so it's almost like a motherly type role, even though there's not necessarily that sort of affection going on.
You know, I really like that, what you were just saying about Omega and, I'm sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought, what I was going to say. It was really good, too. Maybe it'll come back to me. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. Well, while you're thinking of that, I do like that Omega is the one, she takes the compass. She's the one who figures out, that it's like a map, right? Or it's not Phee that figures it out, is it?
It is.
Which one?
Phee.
Phee. Okay.
She says, these are coordinate markings, and then she checks in Mel and she says, yeah, this is compass.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Because Mel, that fun little kind of even boxier version, rectangular version of a gonk droid. Gonky, yeah. Is there. And then when they get there and they start using this thing and they start basically doing all these little Indiana Jones type things, it is Omega that figures out that you have to put this compass in this hole over here and you spin it. And then all of a sudden the entire tunnel turns around and the glowing parts, because she holds the compass up to the lantern. Whose idea was it, the lantern with the compass?
Phee.
That was Fee's idea as well. That makes sense because she's the one
she says put the compass on the lantern.
Yeah, that makes sense. So they turn it and Omega is the one.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and so Omega figures it out. Well, let's talk about this aspect of it. I mean, I wrote down, Mason, you mentioned Indiana Jones earlier, which I thought was cool. I mean, this thing is full of Indiana Jones type stuff until it isn't. But Tom, I'll let you kind of start there. What are all the things you noticed, and how did you like that particular angle in this episode?
Absolutely. It fits right into my one word to describe the episode, and that is puzzles. And Mason, I also have Indiana Jones in my notes, and I'll get to that where I wrote that. But that's one of the things that I really loved about this episode is that it's ancient puzzles, and they're really classic ones too. With the one where they have to spin and they're like wreckers pushing and the circular and they're lining up those pegs to get that to open up. I thought that was really cool. And there's a couple others, but then my favorite one was where, and I don't remember what was said before it, but Phee says, a door is just a door.
Sometimes a door is just a door.
She says, sometimes a door is just a door.
Yep, that's right. And what better way to then find, you have to go through all these puzzles, and then the last barrier to get to the mountain, what is it? The mountain, heart of the mountain
Heart of the
Part of the
mountain.
is,
mountain. Yep.
yeah, is just a door, which I thought
That's
was
far
super
enough.
cool. And so when they get through that last barrier, no, Phee, no, haven't you ever seen an episode of Indiana Jones? Don't take the treasure.
I
thought that was
expect to see a
wonderful.
boulder.
Great play on that.
I was just gonna say that I expected there to be a boulder, or spiders, or spikes, or something.
Yeah.
Snakes.
The thing that I noticed the most, why did it have to be snakes, is that the Kevin Kiner's music is gorgeous, but there are so many echoes that remind me of Indy in the map room in Tana, when he goes into the Tanis map room. And the music is building as the sun is starting to move across the map room before it hits the headpiece of the Staff of Ra. There's so much of that in this episode. The different puzzles, the different ways you have to turn things around, and then you rotate the room. It almost felt like a video game again, but that's not a bad thing. Or like a Dungeons and Dragons episode where you've got to maneuver around all these different traps. And I really liked that. If anything, there was a lot of it. Like maybe, I don't know that I'm going to say too much, but there was a lot of it. But it made it really, really fun, and it made a connection. Now, I don't see Phee like Indiana Jones. She's her own character. They have very different personalities and temperaments and reasons for why they do what they do. But that adventure aspect reminds me of the Star Wars. It reminds me of the serials of the 30s and 40s that inspired Star Wars. So that's a heck of a lot of fun. Mason, anything else you want to add about the Indiana Jones stuff?
The heart of the mountain was Scar and all.
Yes, it's called Scaranal, Skaranal. That's the name of it. And they ultimately find the heart of the mountain, which is that big giant, almost like a stalactite. It's like a purple crystal kind of a thing. But you like the Indiana Jones stuff too, Mason, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe want to watch Raiders again, but every day it makes me want to see Raiders again. So that's not really unique. Tom, do you remember what you were going to say about Omega before?
I don't. It flew right out of my head. So
okay, we'll find it on the floor. Don't step on it, everybody.
Yes, please watch your step.
I want to talk about the only thing that was a challenge for me in this episode, and I'll talk about it later when we give letter grades, is the last. I thought it was half the episode, but I looked at the time because this is a longer episode. It's like 28 or 29 minutes long. 28. Thank you. The last 9 minutes of the episode, suddenly this isn't really an adventure per se. I guess, before we get to that, let's talk about the alien. I kept looking on the captions for the name of that monster, but that added a nice horror element. So speaking of more genre,
it said creature.
Stuff, yeah, all it says is that it's a creature. What did you guys think of that aspect of it? Mason, you want to start?
I was gonna write down the name once it said, and I was like, oh, it doesn't say that. But yeah, it makes it more intense. Don't know what it is. It almost reminded me of the thing that attacks Padme in Attack of the Clones in the arena.
That's the Nexu, right? Yeah, I think that's
Nexu. I think is that what it is? I was thinking
the Reek has the rhino horn, the Acklay is the spider, and the Nexu is like the small cat. I'm pretty sure that's right.
Okay, yeah.
I saw that like it was almost like a cousin of it or something. which happens like in animals, like some animals are like, are like related to, or like cousins of one another, sort of a thing. I like that aspect of it, but it was another. I didn't even think about that, but this is like, we've got the adventure part. You've got like this little horror mystique / action adventure thing. And the thing was formidable because it was given record runs for its money. Eventually he outmuscles it. But I liked that it's already suspenseful enough when you're worried you're going to step on a trap or spring something inadvertently. But having that monster or creature there added a nice, fun moment of suspense for me.
Yeah, and of course, I love a good monster. So one thing that I really appreciated about the monster, because for a while there, I was like, why do we have the monster? The puzzles are hard enough. And after watching it, I was like, okay, what we discover is even more amazing. So why the monster? And after a little bit of thought, what I came up with is a couple things. One, it makes a nice juxtaposition to the high technology that they're about to discover.
Mm-hmm.
And that this very primitive creature is sort of hiding out or living inside of that. And so that's kind of cool. It also gave me an Aliens feel.
Yes.
You know, they're in this once the spaceship was, or the technology was revealed, it was like, oh, cool. That's like an alien in there. So you get a little bit of that sci-fi, as you mentioned, horror in there. So anytime you can bring a cool monster in and then use it in that way, besides just the tension, is really cool.
So let's talk about at the 9-minute mark, when there's 9 minutes left, suddenly we discover that when this heart of the mountain, this purple key basically is taken out. When one of our adventures playing Dungeons and Dragons, Tom, you had a scenario where our characters were inside something like this, although
Yes.
it didn't move around. We had much more control over it. I never made that connection until just now. But suddenly we get into kaiju territory, which I believe isn't kaiju like. I mean, that's what you describe, basically a Godzilla type of a thing. This is why I gave it the genre head scratching word in quotes, because we went from action adventure to small horror to suddenly this is a Godzilla story. How did you guys feel about the twist?
So actually, this was my favorite part of the episode. I know I like the puzzles. The puzzles kind of drove the story, made you wonder what was ahead. When Phee talks about the heart of the mountain and gives sort of that lore, I just had an inkling that it was going to be something larger than just a treasure piece. And so when she pulls that out and the thing starts shaking, I was like, I already said that, the whole Indiana Jones, don't do that, whatever. I was completely floored when like everything started shifting on the inside and went from rock to the very smooth technology sort of filled space. And then when it came crawling out or walking out of the mountain, and then that laser beam just digs a trench through the earth with massive destruction. That took me. So when I talk about another I don't know if it's head scratching, but another genre kick is to the 1950s, like sci-fi movies of War of the Worlds or something. And it's this big Goliath creature, technological creature that's just all it was created for apparently was just to destroy things. And so, and you mentioned the music earlier. And did you note the change in the music here? I felt like it went very kind of like almost like a record player was playing it, and it lost its bass and went very trumpet heavy. I was like, cool. Whoa, this is super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that surprise.
It was excellent. It was like another level of storytelling, incorporating and modifying the music like that. That was great.
Yeah.
So this was your favorite part. This is your favorite aspect. That's great.
Yes, indeed.
Mason, what about you?
I have my notes returning the stone, and it basically puts Indiana Jones on its head.
Oh, so you liked it too?
I liked it, but it isn't like Indiana Jones.
Sure.
So the Indiana Jones theme just
doesn't work anymore.
Why, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't like this. In fact, the first time I watched it, I said to Mason, boy, this was a great episode until this happened. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look, I like the idea, I suppose. The execution is obviously flawless. The musical shifts and tone are brilliant.
Yeah.
But I really liked the adventure I was going on with puzzles and archaeology type stuff and space pirates and getting to see why Phee isn't just all talk. I think that's what I liked for the most of the episode. Phee isn't all talk. She's got a lot of stories. She's backing it up repeatedly. She's never nervous. She's completely unflappable. But suddenly she's out of her element, and then we're out of our element. And now we don't really have anyone to anchor us into the action, which is a great way to create tension with the viewer, which I like. But I'm just not a big kaiju guy. I mean, I've talked ad nauseum about how much I do not like Pacific Rim. I like Godzilla, but not as much as others do. So this direction for me, it was flat for me. But it wasn't because of how it was told. It was told beautifully. It's just not something that I like as much. Or maybe a nicer way to say it is, I liked the stuff before it became a robotic monster thingy. I like that stuff a lot better.
That's fair. And I think what drew me into that was what they set up earlier when they were talking about I forget how we said it, the Scaranau, is they established, Scaranau is that they established that this is ancient. Because someone says, "Oh, you mean like the Jedi?" And no, far, far before that.
He says the ancients before the Jedi. By the way, we've never had anything like this in Star Wars. So I wrote that down. I made a big deal about that.
Yeah, and so that was kind of like I was looking for something new and for something different. And they gave it to me. And so my mind just kind of ran with this idea that, was this an ancient destruction machine like the Death Star or something of that time? And it was so destructive that they decided to hide it, and they buried it in this mountain. So look at me, I'm making up all these great stories based on this little bit, these like 3 minutes.
Great.
But I thought that's what kind of made it fun for me was, what is it going to be? What is this era like? And so they show us this, and it was just like, wow, that's kind of cool.
That's a cool way to look at it. It's cool. So I don't really have much more to say about this. I'm about ready to give a letter grade. But Mason, is there anything you want to add?
I think it's cool that Phee mentions Mel's memory bank being on the ship and how it happens all the time of him getting destroyed.
I do too, because then we don't have to worry about Mel not being around, because he was pretty cute.
That's a great detail. I love that.
I do too. That's
really
a good
well
one.
done.
Tom, anything you want to say before we give our letter grades?
No, I'm good to go.
Okay. Well, I'll start. If I was going to grade this pre-kaiju, I would have given it an A. But with everything the way that it's together, it's probably a B- for me. I like the idea of the split. I think that's fun. I always like bold, new storytelling. But I think I was just so happy with the adventure aspect that I was disappointed that it wasn't there. So I'm going to give it a very strong B-.
Very good.
Mason.
I gave it an A.
Okay. You want to say why?
I liked, like you said, and then when that happened, I didn't think it was, I didn't like dislike it. I thought it was a cool idea. Mm-hmm. And the giant robot kind of reminded me of Pokemon.
Oh, yeah. Very
nice.
Japanese. Very Japanese. That's cool.
I love it.
So would it have been an A+ without the giant robot, or was it just A no matter what?
A no matter what.
All right. I love it. Tom.
Yeah, you know what? When coming into the show, I was gonna say B+. But now, after talking about it, and this is what this show and these kind of breakdowns of episodes like this are all about, is the discussion and getting other points of view. And so I have to tell you, both of you helped me to come around to Phee Genoa. And so I'm bumping this episode up to an A with you, Mason, because it is solid Bad Batch excitement. Mm-hmm. Brought in some new twists with the puzzles and they fought monsters before, but the sort of the way they use this monster and then that ending just blew me away. So I'm going an A. This one was a ton of fun.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is yes.
Thank you both, as always, for joining me to talk about Bad Batch. Mason can be found sometimes on CWK Live and with his dad, Dan Zehr. Oh, that's me. So thank you again for coming on the show, Mace.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime, buddy. And Tom, it's great to have you back on Coffee with Kenobi proper. There's always a spot at the Coffee with Kenobi table for you, my friend. Please let everybody know what you've got going on with your blog and Teachers in the Dungeon and all your great stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can catch me personally on Twitter at Draftline. Catch me there. You'll see me talking about Star Wars things, Dungeons and Dragons things, other fun stuff like that. And then thanks for mentioning my blog, Seeking Positivity in the Galaxy, where I just kind of write about whatever's on my mind. There is no specific theme there. So there's that. And then, yes, Teachers in the Dungeon, my podcast, along with Dan Ream. We talk about our games we play, creators, we interview them. Right now we're in sort of a crazy time with Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons. So we've been interviewing some third-party creators and getting their thoughts on all the things going on with open gaming license and whatnot. So yeah, join me there on Teachers in the Dungeon.
And of course, you can find me, Corey, and Tom every week on CWK Pro for members of the CWK Alliance. It's a great way to support me and the show. And we're able to give back with exclusive podcasts and video you can't find anywhere else. And 10% of these contributions that you give to us every month go directly to St. Jude Children's Hospital. So on behalf of myself, Mason Zehr, and Tom Gross, we will see you next time, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. Remember, this is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.